Well, hey there, Tim. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to my overview of the First Descendant. So, for those not across it, I do overviews on this channel. It's where I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game because that's the Steam refund window. Now, this is an exception to the rule. There are exceptions, but 95% of the time it works. I'm not going to change my branding or method just because of that, though I will address this is a free-to-play game, obviously. Worth your time, worth your money, little bit of a different cost-benefit, but more importantly, you can just download it and play it yourself. You don't have to refund it or anything like that to figure out what I'm going to tell you. I've played it for a bit more actually, about 3 to 4 hours, and I've really enjoyed my time with it, to be honest. I don't play a lot of these sort of games, which is to say a looter shooter with a more free-to-play mentality, and I don't think anyone, being honest with themselves, denies that the handshake agreement with this sort of game is the loop is going to be sort of dragged out, so your value is going to come from how much you enjoy the loop with grinding materials and unlocks. And in this particular game, it's specifically like more characters with sexy skins and that sort of stuff. It's kind of like a hero shooter type scenario, and that's where you got to make the deal. Are you going to grind for arguably a more bloated loop that's trying to get you to spend currency, or are you going to front up the money and buy the characters that you like? This shouldn't be a revelation to anyone, but what really matters is the gameplay loop actually fun? And I would say yes, for sure. I've really enjoyed my time with it so far. You get to pick from 3 default dudes. I picked this bloke, what's his name? Bloody Ajax, spray and white. And he's got horns or something like that, whatever, but he's more of a tank, right? And you essentially have 3 weapons, 3 weapon slots, and you've got different ammo types, but that's more for running out of ammo. They're not drawing from the same pool or anything like that. And then you've got like 4 hero abilities with some pretty entry-level interplay. With this dude, he can drop some shields, he can do a pretty cool slam jump attack, which I think is very groovy and fun. And he's got like a passive combo sort of thing. So like if you do 3 different attacks, you charge up a bar and the 4th one gets superfied. That's about as complicated as it gets. The gunplay is actually really fun and punchy. I find it to be very clean. I'm not in the business of making this a pissing match between this game and that game. I'm just telling you this one is cool. I like it. I've enjoyed like the sound and the feedback, and they all feel punchy and meaty. Everything is bullet spongy like crazy, and there's not a huge threat of death looming. However, I did come up against a boss that it looked like he was causing trouble for some of the other characters. It wasn't so bad for me. He was a bit of a bullet sponge, but it was a challenge. Sort of the culmination of my first 2 hours was fighting a boss named Greg, which I find hilarious. I hate, sci-fi fantasy. Let's give them weird, unpronounceable names with soft letters and fart sniffy naming conventions of fantasy and sci-fi. I like that we're fighting all these monsters and it's the end of the world and all that, and the big boss's name is Greg. That works for me. I can't wait to beat his boss, Andrew. The long and short of it is it's a mix between hero shooter ability activation and gunplay, and it seems to work very well. I mean, we'll see. Maybe I will review it because there's not a lot else going on this week. And I am enjoying it, I won't deny it, but maybe I want to pull my hair out a dozen hours in, who knows. I quite like the way that you've got the hub at home, and then you go out to these regions, and it's sort of semi-open world instance, and you just go up to a little prompt and start a mission, and you just pile in with random people, and they're running around the zone, and they can jump in the back of your little instance as well and do the mission together. And I kind of like that. Like, I don't know if this is something that's been going on in this style of game, because I don't play like Destiny or Warframe, which are very close cousins to this, obviously. But it's cool. It makes for a more of a immersive living world feel, even though it's very gamey still, as opposed to just instanced dungeons where you don't really interact with other people. It is kind of cool that, it feels more like the starting era of a World of Warcraft expansion or whatever, where everyone's just cruising around and you're running into each other doing missions, and it's like soft interaction. So yeah, look, I haven't felt any pressure to buy any new characters. However, that's going to vary on each person, but I can only really speak for myself. I don't have a gambling streak. I don't feel compelled to buy and own everything, and I'm quite happily just playing this for free. I'm happy to put money on the table for a game that I enjoy and I feel like they deserve it, sort of pay the devs. But this isn't compelling me in any sort of gated gameplay thing, other than the fact you just probably have to get used to playing the same guy for hours and enjoy his moveset and the gameplay fundamentals, which I do. It's fun. Jury's still out on all the loot management and all that. Like, I kind of don't love being overwhelmed with lots of shit loot. To me, it's very, I see the illusion. I see you're trying to trick me into little dopamine drip feeding, but it's the same as character sheets when you upgrade a stat and you get plus 1% lightning resistance or something. Like, I don't give a shit about any of that sort of stuff. I just see that as weak gameplay design. And this, like, my backpack can hold 70 items or something like that, and already multiple times I've filled the whole thing up. However, and it's, I mean, I don't know what to make of this, but there are not necessarily move all functions, like putting it into your vault storage, but there is like a pretty robust search, filter, delete system, like dismantle for crafting mats, all this stuff. So that's a cool feature, but it's almost like it's dealing with a problem that I don't think should be there. So the game is more interested in giving you 10,000 shit trash weapons and in giving you a robust set of deletion crafting tools to manage those. And look, judge a game for what it is, not for what you want it to be. But that said, in my mind, why not just have 1 or 2 loot drops that are actually worth dropping? This is their model they're going for. A whole bunch of trash loot and not necessarily my flavor. Story's B grade as anything, but you know, it's got high production. Everything's just got a nice sheen to it. Everything looks great. All the audio, they've got all the voice acting. It's very camp. It's obviously appealing to what I would say is just a perfectly reasonable art style that a lot of mainstream Western development is railing against. You know, there's a lot of sexy chicks in skin-tight outfits, but there's, you know, a lot of bloody fucking ripped dudes cruising around with their muscles out as well. I think most normal gamers like this sort of shit. I do. It's cool. I will say as well, I noticed that it's getting reviewed bomb at the moment. I can't really speak to much of that stuff because I checked it. I don't live in a bubble. I shouldn't even say reviewed bomb, right? If there's an issue and a bunch of negative reviews go on something because of that issue, that's not a bomb. That's just using the review system correctly. Anyway, I'm correcting myself. I apologize. Apparently, there's been some performance issues I saw in some of the negative stuff in there. I get that, but I personally haven't encountered anything. In fact, I would marvel that this might be the cleanest launch of any game I've ever seen ever. Now, I don't necessarily play a lot of MMOs and all that sort of stuff, but it has become almost the rule that a major multiplayer server launch on day one is just going to shit the bed. Now, I was there right when it launched, when everyone was there, and the servers were chockers, people everywhere in every instance, cross-play, you can see above their head, I've got little PlayStation and Xbox boys running around with me as well. And I didn't have a single matchmaking drop, a performance issue, or anything like that. So while I'm sympathetic that some people probably have had issues, my personal experience is it's actually been almost unbelievably solid as far as stability goes. You could argue that this should just be the standard. This should be how launches are, but alas, we live in reality, and this is an exception where it is exceptionally, you know. I saw some other issues in there about like the real money shop having a bit of a hiccup. I shouldn't say a bit of a hiccup, sounds like a pretty big deal, where people were buying game currency and the game wasn't giving it to them. And that is probably where the server issues are kicking in. I doubt it's some frigging high-tech scam to steal your money and run, but if you're willing to go into this game and just throw your money at it immediately, maybe give it a chance to sort the servers out before it eats your currency. But look, these blokes are going to get reimbursed. I can understand the anger. I am sympathetic. This is obviously a serious problem that will probably get patched out immediately. I've also seen fair comparisons saying, you know, go play Warframe or go play Destiny instead. I understand that. And I'll leave you with this sort of closing thought. I bounced off Warframe when it first came out, but arguably it's a different game now than when it was 10 years ago or whatever. And I played a bit of Destiny back in the day, but I find both of them, like, I respect that they're probably both wonderful games, but there is such a sunk cost investment that as an outsider looking in, I find incredibly daunting to get over that hurdle. They've released all these expansions and all this story development, and, you know, I like the idea of getting involved in a rich universe, But because I didn't get in the ground floor of them, and I actually think this is a bigger problem in this sort of game development. This game's going to have the same problem. If it's still going after a couple of years, it's going to be so impenetrably obtuse as far as what story there is that it's going to scare off other new players as well. So that would be my argument. This is not a bad game at all. It's quite casual, at least in the early going. Though it seems like the in-game will get very quite difficult. You can really turn the difficulty up to up the loot tables, which appeals to me. I used to enjoy doing riff runs for Diablo 3 leaderboards. That would be my sort of main thought. There's nothing really wrong with this gameplay loop. It's quite solid. I can't compare it directly to the other big hitters, but just note that this is an opportunity for people like me to get in at the ground floor of one of these games and actually understand the world and the story and what's going on. And until Destiny or Warframe really find a way to make it more new player friendly, I think they're going to still have that same problem. Anyway, at this point I'm waffling on a little bit. I like it. It's free. Check it out yourself. And let me know if this is something you'd want to see me review and do a bit deeper, you know? I've talked about the idea of a 14-hour review and then some, so maybe I'll put some more hours into it and do an update video. We'll see. Alright team, I might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.